So the way that we use the internet today, we are all over the place, from social networks to gaming to streaming. Well, with Surfshark, they've got you covered. Surfshark protects your online identity. It can block ads, trackers, and malware. It can even keep you safe on public Wi-Fi. It can help you stay secure with your online banking. It can secure your crypto assets, even protect yourself while gaming, and even allow you to bring your entertainment abroad with you. There's no need to miss your favorite shows when you travel just because they're only available back home. So with the instant security, you can protect yourself from data theft, tracking, surveillance, and commercial targeting. The web is always better when you're safer. You can forget malware, forget phishing attempts, and be free from ads. And when you're on public Wi-Fi, this can come in really handy, but it's a goldmine for hackers, and you can use Surfshark to protect your connection. Now, I've managed to get this audience an incredible 83% off and 3 extra months free of using Surfshark just by using the promo code MrJWW. So hit the link in the top of the description below, and it's always good to browse with that peace of mind, keeping you safe while you're online. And listen to it, let's punch it. Out to 6,000 RPM. You wouldn't believe how this thing goes. You would not believe how this thing goes. So hello, welcome back to the bunker, welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to the next episode of our Restomod series. Today, something entirely different. We have in the Chieftain, and we have Darren from Chieftain to run us through it. I would want to know how this started. How did you come about basically re-engineering these beautiful machines?
So we have a history with re-engineering Jensen interceptors. This is what we've been doing for some time now. And for a while we were looking for another vehicle which we could improve sufficiently and re-engine without ruining the feel of the car. And we settled upon the Range Rover.
So shortly, we're going to take this thing for a drive. We have a beautiful spring day here. But I think what you won't identify on camera is the amount of work that these guys have put into this car. Because am I right in thinking that the majority of it you would say is in chassis, drivetrain, transmission, etc.?
Right, so we start with the idea that you peel the body off, you roll the chassis out, you completely re-engineer the chassis with all the new suspension, brakes, steering, engine, gearbox, exhaust, fuel tank, the lot, and roll it back under the body.
So the original Range Rover would have ran around 180 horsepower?
About 180 horsepower.
And they're over two and a half tons, 2.3, something like that?
In that sort of order, yep.
Okay.
And still much the same now, but we're now running 430 horsepower out of a 6.2 litre V8, again, modern American. But more importantly, driving it through a modern transmission.
Yes.
So where the original Range Rover used an older type transmission where a lot of power arguably was lost through the transmission, by using a modern General Motors transmission, 6-speed auto in this, you get a lot more of that power to all 4 wheels.
Yes. So I'm really excited to share the drive with you. But while we're talking about power, let's just cut to it. I want to see under there to the work you've done with the engine, because this fascinates me.
Of course, right, let's do that. So this is a General Motors LS3 engine, all alloy, 6.2 litre V8, fabulous, say 430 brake horsepower, with all of its kit and caboodle that comes from General Motors to go with it. So it's a very easily serviced car. There's not too much bespokery under here. The whole idea again being that this is an everyday usable car.
Yeah, beautiful. And I would imagine having that, not just about the horsepower, but from a usability point of view, the torque that this brings must be night and day from a usability experience.
Right. So the big change we've had to make is replacing the live axles that the car originally had.
Right.
With fully independent suspension all round.
That must be a game changer for it.
That has completely radically altered the car, and that really is the radical part of the re-engineering. The engine swap's a fairly common thing, but what sets us apart from anybody else doing this is the independent suspension and the way that changes the car drives. Improved brakes, again using later Land Rover parts, so still common and easily serviceable.
Right. Okay.
Improved braking to go with the additional power. And what you get by putting the independent suspension, particularly on the front, is you deal with the issue that with this much power, you have a torque implication up the front prop shaft.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So in a standard Range Rover, you don't feel it. It hasn't got enough power to do anything.
Sure.
But with a live axle with this much power, what you risk with a torque implication up the prop shaft is lifting one front wheel at full chat and bearing the other one into the round. Because with a live axle, and you've got enough power here potentially to break traction on all four wheels, particularly in the wet.
Crikey.
But by centralising the centre diff at the front, by locating it to the chassis and using the suspension, the independent suspension, you reduce that torque implication up the front prop. So you've got equal weight and power distribution to all wheels.
So it's a stress member now of the chassis, as it were.
It is, effectively, between the two rails of the chassis, the original axle casing used, the original diff, albeit limited slip at the back now, is used, and then we hang the independent suspension off the ends of it.
So it's not just 430 brake for the sake of it, this is usable power now. This has been transmitted very much to the tarmac, as it were.
Right, absolutely. And you can really press on in this, and you can find yourself travelling quite quickly, but you've also now got the ability to cope with it when you come to roundabouts, to cope with it when you come to stop it. And stop it. So it's an overall package.
One thing that I noticed earlier, before we started filming, obviously, it arrived, and you can subtly hear it before you actually see it. And it's not an obnoxious sound. It's just a deep sort of.
We've been quite careful to keep it not obnoxious.
Sure.
You want to know it's got a nice big engine, and you want to know you've got a V8, but you don't want it droning and making too much noise on a long journey. These cars you can do long journeys in. And it's a full stainless system that we make in-house, bespoke to the car.
So interior, again, really reflects the exterior in that it's not totally standard, but pretty true to the authenticity of the original.
Completely.
Yeah.
So we hope to start with a decent donor car.
Right.
Okay. Because we're going to reuse the internal architecture of the car. We've gone with quilted inserts in the doors.
Yes.
We've even leathered the speaker surrounds and the pockets on the doors,
touches.
just to improve those. The woods, again, to customers' request, we've had those all bespoke made for the car. I've got a dark walnut. You can have whatever you like. The perforated Alcantara is there for a very good reason. We have a heated and cooled seat system in the car to augment the HVAC.
Brilliant. So styling then, I mean, as I was saying earlier, this is almost a sleeper, almost.
Right.
It looks pretty authentic with the odd tweak here and there.
So the way we started with the Chieftain range was that you could actually have a complete sleeper. The car could look totally original on the outside. This car we've gone a bit further with by using our own restyled bumpers and side skirts. The original wheels at original height, an LSE can look a little bit ungainly in the rear door, but doing this to it and putting the extensions into the bumpers and giving it that shape and the smoothness down the side, taking the rubbing strips off, just slight modifications to the wing, just clean the whole car up, and suddenly it looks a much more elegant machine.
Yes. When we say bespoke, these are all built to order?
Every car is built to order.
So entirely client's vision request from the ground up?
From the ground up, yeah.
That's brilliant.
We work within the architecture of the car that we have.
Sure, yeah.
So there are obviously going to be some limitations as to what you can do, but colours, leathers, engines, gearboxes, wheels, brakes, all available to play.
So here we go, rolling away from the bunker. Now, before we hit the road, I mean, first of all, we've just had a fantastic overview of the car and the engineering and, you know, the thought process behind Chieftain and this particular car. And it's really cool and quite refreshing on this channel, actually, to be getting into a car which its primary source of existence is not to grab it by the scruff of its neck and drive it 10/10ths, but to gracefully amble along in sort of regal serenity. Now this car, of course, while it is regal and definitely a distinct icon of the 90s, this is underpinned, as you've seen, with a 430 horsepower V8, sir. And it's just knowing that it's in the car, not the fact that it will transform the way it accelerates or anything like that, just knowing that it's in the car, for me, changes the entire mindset before you even turn the key. Early cars of this era just did not drive well at all. In fact, I'd go so far as to say terrible. The dynamics of this car, even just turning into that roundabout, of course, look, this car's over 2 tons, of course there is an element of roll in it, and that's what you're expecting from your Range Rover experience. But it's eradicated most of the historical sloppiness And I just think that's great. Chieftain try and use OEM, original manufacturer parts, as and when possible. First of all, to try and keep it as authentic as possible, but second of all, because the engineering is tried and true. I mean, take, for example, the amount of torque this thing now runs. Despite the fact that it has an uprated 6-speed gearbox, there are a lot of original transmission components in this because they were originally designed to drag heavy machinery out of a wet bog. And it used to, you know, transfer all of that torque through some of the original transmission components. But the gearbox in this thing, new 6-speed box, and it actually does just light years ahead in terms of the job it does of applying the power to the road. And listen to it. It sounds purposeful too. Now, one of the things which has greatly added to just driving enjoyment of this car is the torque. The torque that you get out of this engine just makes it such an effortless drive. Can you pick up on the odd scuttle and rattle and shake? That's not a problem for me. This is ultimately a proper Restomod. And let's just clarify, when we say Restomod on this channel, I don't mean the interior's been retrimmed. This is a re-engineered car. So anything that's featured on this channel as a Restomod will have had proper thought and engineering go into it. But what's quite nice about the Chieftain is that they've tried their best to retain some of the original character and authenticity of the car, which is going back to one of the reasons why they try to use original manufacturer parts where possible. And you still do have the odd sort of rattle and shake in here, but it's not the kind of rattle and shake that you're offended by. It doesn't feel like a mechanical flaw or an engineering default. It's just Range Rover sound. It's a cool thing. Now, one of the things that Chieftain are really keen to express with this is that it's not designed to be a sort of show pony. This is really designed to be used daily, used in the real world. This particular car is going out to California. It meets their strict emissions and road regulations. But the componentry which allows this to be used every day is things like uprated brakes. I mean, with this being over 2 tons and 430 horsepower, it needs to stop, and stop it does. This has uprated larger brakes, once again, OEM brakes, so these are off the Discovery 3, so proven brakes. And then the HVAC system, effectively the air conditioning system, actually works. The old one was somewhat of an asthmatic hamster fart, where in this it's actually a decent air conditioning system, which if you're going to be living with it in California, you really need one. And one of the enhancements on this, which at night time will be a big difference, is the headlights. Now, not only, I think it really suits the character and face, if you will, of this car, but the upgraded LED headlights means that at night time it won't be like there's a choir boy holding a candle out in front of you as you traverse your country road. No, you'll actually be able to see where you're going. Because this is, compared to the original engine, a much more modern engine, the fuel efficiency is improved by around about 30%. Now, granted, you're still probably only in high teens, early 20s miles per gallon, but let's face it, if you're buying one of these, that's not what you're thinking about. And then listen to it, let's punch it. Out to 6,000 RPM. You wouldn't believe how this thing goes. You would not believe how this thing goes. Oh, the aesthetics and association of this do not match with what just happened under my right foot. So there we have it. What a machine. Do you know what's been brilliant today is driving something entirely different. It's not very often that you get a super fresh experience from a driving experience. This thing has a feel totally unto its own. I love the way it looks. I love the reception that I get from other people on the road and pavement. It's great. People have given me thumbs up and they just really appreciate it. And I just think it's really nice to experience a totally different driving style. Even before you step in this thing, even before you turn it on, despite the fact that it's rocking a 430 horsepower V8, it just puts your brain in a different demeanor. You get in it and you just relax and the world slows down and it's a wonderful place to be. The biggest difference is the dynamics and the power versus the original car are just worlds apart. But Chieftain have done a great job of maintaining that sort of authenticity that the original car had. Pretty cool thing. I'd like to spend some more time in one, that's for sure. Anyway, questions and comments below. If you have any feedback, thoughts, or anything you want to know, let me know in the comments. And we shall see you next time. Thanks for watching. Ciao.